Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Freaky Fast Broadcasting on your Wednesday night. It's the WSSR Roasted Gems Cup Series, Season 7, the round of 10. It is the cutoff race to figure out our 6 drivers that will race for a championship in the next 2 weeks. But tonight, such an important race. We started the playoffs off with just 16 drivers. We cut them down to 10, and after tonight, we will be down to our final 6. It's going to be a good one. Here tonight I'm racing on my anniversary 160 at Richmond. Joshua Kanata, well, hopefully you are able to move on to the championship round of 6 because he's putting it all on the line as he's racing on his anniversary. It's going to be a good one. We're excited for it. My name is Sam Dyer. Joining me up the booth is going to be Joshua Altus. And Josh, it is certainly a race of importance coming here to Richmond, a cutoff race. But what's been rough this season, it's a short track.
Yeah, absolutely, Sam. Great to be with you on this Wednesday night. And man, you said it. I mean, what better way than to come into a short track to try to make the final 6? We started with 16 guys, whittled down to 10, and now we're going to go from 10 to 6 tonight. We saw a ton of action last week at Kansas. We saw some rivalries being brewed, some hard racing between guys. So I have a feeling we might see some scores settle tonight at Richmond.
And after that Kansas race last week, we already have 1 driver already locked in. 5 spots are still open to be grabbed as Benjamin Nelson, winner of last week's race, booked his ticket. But the rest of the field, it's still wide open on who can point their way in or potentially win their way to run for a championship. The last drivers that are still fighting for a chance going to be Larry Yingling, who's got a 15-point buffer over Nick Crawford. Shane Tarian has got a 10-point buffer over Nick Crawford. Ryan Kelly, who's 4th in points, has got a 9-point buffer with Douglas Newbigging, a 7-point buffer. And Joshua Kanata, cutoff line, only 6 points over Nick Crawford, who is 7th in points now. And then in 8th in points, he is 12 points out to Kanata. That's Brian P. Johnson. Zach Hall is 14 points out from Joshua Kanata. And Cedric Hunter, who was originally, before tonight's race, 7th in points, is officially out. He is no longer going to be racing for a championship. He was in a must-win scenario last week. He knew he was going to miss out on tonight's race. And, you know, Josh, having that bounce back now you've got a little bit of a bigger buffer for those drivers that are already in our top 6 coming in tonight. It's got to be a little bit of a fresh air, but it's only a small little bit of a number gap that builds out even more for tonight's race.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't rest too much on your laurels tonight, even if you're above the cut line. I mean, really the only driver that can be absolutely certain is Benjamin Nelson, and it's because he was our winner last week. But every other guy in the field, there's still that potential, Sam. We've seen, you know, it happened to guys like Ken Campbell where, you know, the internet goes out on them, you know, kind of iRacing's version of an engine failure. And just like that, you could be sitting in position and then end up finishing, you know, last out of nowhere. So you are not safe unless you are locked in. And, you know, I'm looking at the guys below the cut line. You know, Nick Crawford, in my mind, is really the only one that I feel like could potentially point his way in. Guys like Brian Johnson, 12 points back, and Zach Hall, 14 points back. They're going to need a lot of help tonight if they're going to try to point their way in. Their best bet is to just try to get a win tonight.
Yeah, and then you've also got the other storyline of drivers that are outside, like looking in of Nick Crawford, Brian P. Johnson, Zach Hall. If they win, they can balance one of the 6 drivers that's already locked in. And Joshua Kanata knows, hey, he's on the cut line, but between that a 3rd in points all the way down to 6th, it's just a 4-point difference. Anyone can flip-flop on their positioning. As practice and qualifying is done, it's time for us to stop talking about the hypotheticals and look to see who's moving on to the championship 6 to run for a championship. Here at Richmond, your starting grid, sponsored by Collie's Mom. Taking the pole award is going to be Benjamin Nelson in 79, trying to double down on his wins after winning last week. Larry Yingling, who's found himself in a victory lane all the way back in Season 2 here at Richmond, hoping to get the win done. Brian P. Johnson, Zach Hall, 3rd, 4th. Must-win scenarios for the both of them. They're in prime position to be up front, with Brian Noel in 5th, Christopher Norris 6th, Cody Reed in 7th, Shane Tarian, our regular season champion, going to be in 8th, with Chris Stitz 9th, and finishing out our top 10, it's Brandon Colley.
and starting just outside the top 10. We talked about him racing on his anniversary tonight, the number 16 of Joshua Kanata. He's currently above the cut line. Hopefully he can stay there. Nick Crawford is going to be battling him as well to try to make the playoffs. He'll be starting 12th to his outside. Starting 13th, another playoff driver of Ryan Kelly. 14th will be Ken Campbell. 15th, Isaiah Sutherland. 16th will be Douglas Newbigging. 17th is going to be Brad Delph. 18th will be Ali Fonseca. 19th will be Thomas Walter. And rounding out the top 20 will be Brian with an I Johnson. And then the final drivers rounding out our field, just 3 more, Sam. James Heater will start 21st. James Coffin 22nd. And starting shotgun on the field tonight will be James Hackworth Jr.
Okay, the trio of the James back in the half of the field. We'll see how well they can run. Good to see James Heater back out on track, and having more drivers on course means there's no more points to be grabbed, more opportunities to try to point your way in to our Championship 6. As well as for tonight's race, we thank you so much for joining with us on Freaky Fast Broadcasting, as tonight, again, it is the I'm Racing on My Anniversary 160 at Richmond. We will run 160 laps in total. There will be a competition caution here tonight at the end of lap 50, unless there is a caution before lap 50. That will take the crown as our competition caution. What's different here tonight, and it's been like this all season long, because we are at a short track, these drivers do have a fast repair to work with. They've got one in their back pocket, 5 extra sets of tires in pit road, and I've been hearing from a lot of drivers, tires could be super impactful, more important than what fuel is. So we'll see how the drivers are going to react to that information. But Josh, I think that kind of throws it to the field of how do you want to run this race, because we were notified fuel windows around that of 80 to 85 laps.
Yeah, I'm not expecting this to necessarily be a fuel race, Sam. I think, like you said, I think tires are going to be of the essence here. You just got to play the strategy. When are the cautions going to come out? Are you going to try to get off cycle from the guys you're racing? When's the time to put the tires on? When's the time to save? So I think that's something we got to be on the lookout for tonight.
How do the drivers want to react? And because the fuel is in a good spot, the drivers should not have to pit for fuel during our competition first 50 laps of this race. But short tracks have been the thorn on the side of this league this season. Any race that's been below that of a mile and a half, it's been 10 plus cautions for those races. We'll see if we can keep it clean. Can we keep it green? Let's find out as I'm Racing on My Anniversary 160 is underway. Benjamin Nelson, Larry Yingling take off and roar down into turn number 1.
Down into turn 1, and Larry Yingling got a fantastic start there, Sam, and he's going to take the lead down, coming off turn 2 down the back stretch.
In a position where he doesn't want to have his fate into the point of positions and points. He wants to get the win, automatically lock himself in a position to not worry going at the end of the night. Zach Hall, on the other hand, he's trying to get aggressive, trying to get by Benjamin Nelson. Nelson was on the inside groove, yet to really confirm a position just yet. He's still on the fight. Christopher Norris working the outside lane as well, as the field has done a great job so far in these first lap and a half to survive at slight contact. Shane Terrian into Brian Noel, and those two drivers have had some bickering moments in the past, and they continue to have some slight moments between the 9 and the 77.
Yeah, we talked about last week, Sam, just the battling and the aggression that these drivers are starting to show now. I mean, we're here in the playoffs, Sam. I mean, you've got to run up front if you have any hope to advance. And, you know, these guys want to battle for a championship. So I don't expect any guys to really do a whole lot of giving tonight. It'll probably be the majority of taking with it being a short track.
3 wide for 5th place. I mean, excuse me, for that is 6th, and it is getting very claustrophobic for the position. A little bit 3 wide and also further on back as Chris Stitz gets out of a very uncomfortable position, falls and loses over 6 spots. But Shane Terrian, just watching Cody Reed, he is ripping that 3rd lane and made it work for that of the 52.
Yeah, the outside seems to be so far the predominant lane here, Sam. We saw Larry Yingling get that jump. Zach Hall was using it to his advantage. He's now pulled up to the 2nd position, and that's who I've got my eye on tonight, Sam. The 32 of Zach Hall, he's seemingly in a must-win position. He's been fast all year, but that win has just eluded him this season. Could tonight be the night for the number 32?
And a driver that's also in a pretty scary spot if he's not careful. That is going to be the 7 machine of Douglas Newbigging, as he has fallen all the way back to 15th position. He qualified in 16th. 7's got a lot of work. He wants to start moving forward, but Joshua Kanata taking the sponsor for tonight's race. Saw an opening for tonight's race about a week ago and said, hey, can I have that spot since it's my anniversary? And asked if he could run on his anniversary. He was given permission, and now the 16 with a chance to run and make it to the round of 6 and run up for a championship. As we got Homestead and Chicagoland, the last 2 races of the season. The 16's got a lot of work, but right now in a very comfortable position in 10th place.
Yeah, Joshua Kananda's just been one of those drivers, Sam, this season. He's been kind of quiet. You know, we haven't really heard a lot out of him. He hasn't been making a ton of noise running up front necessarily, but you know, we don't talk about him in a negative way either. He seems to always be able to keep all 4 fenders on the car, just kind of minds his P's and Q's, and you know, I've seen him really make a good day out of, you know, maybe just a average day. So yeah, Joshua Kananda running solidly inside the top 10 right now.
And one of the drivers surprisingly continues to go backwards, Benjamin Nelson. I know tires was a big talking point with drivers on all teams, trying to figure out how do you save tires, how do you make them work, because there's a pretty big drop-off after 20 laps. This 79 just not looking comfortable, and got to be saying, hey, luckily I got my win last week. It's okay if I have a bad night, but at this moment it looks like Nelson is just on extreme tire-saving mode.
Yeah, this has been a pretty common theme, I think, from week to week, Sam, just watching the 79 be really conservative on his tire saving, as now we see a battle for the lead happening as well, as Zach Hall's going to peek to the inside for the lead.
Peeks to the inside, trying to take the lead position as Zach Hall. Other drivers having some quick moments deeper in the field. Nick Crawford had a scare for himself as Larry Yingling and Zach Hall continue to race on, getting aggressive with one another, as they're still side by side. But Nick Crawford and Ken Campbell made contact with one another, hurting both the 74 and the 7, losing a lot of ground for the both of them. But Zach, must-win scenario. He's not worrying about points. He wants the lead badly.
Yeah, he's fighting the 67 really tough right now, hanging on that outside. And we saw Larry Yingling battle for the lead early last week at Kansas as well, with the 7 of Douglas Newbigging was the challenger last week, and now it's the 32 of Zach Hall. Looks like Zach's going to back off, fall back in line, and try to cool his tires down, try to save up for another run here.
And I mean, coming into tonight's race, Zach Hall still searching for that first win this season, as well for that of Brian Johnson. I mean, in a must-win scenario for both of them, trying to get into victory lane. They're looking strong, but they got to beat out that of the 67. Larry Yingling, the 3-time champion, trying to go for his 4th championship in 7 seasons. 67 is ultimately the prize to beat here this season.
Yeah, he sure is. I mean, Larry Yingling, he's, again, a little bit of a quiet season, maybe from his expectations, Sam. But, I mean, you do not want the 3-time champ to get hot at this time of the year. He can definitely be poised to go for that 4th championship. And I want to talk a little bit second about Brian P. Johnson, running 3rd as well in that trophy smack machine, Sam. You know, we talked to Brian before the first cutoff race, and he told us where he wasn't normally accustomed to being below the cut line. It was kind of a different place for him. Well, he finds himself in the same position tonight. He was able to get it done before. Can't he get up here and get the win tonight?
Hey, I mean, if you got to have a clutch factor, right now is the time to show it. This trophy smack machine is trying his best. As we take a look and right along, drivers have already been showing handling issues popping off the exit of the corners, with drivers trying to keep their cars straight while getting back on the throttle. These cars have a lot of horsepower that you're dealing with every time you press that throttle, and right now you've seen not worth 28. Clean exit at turn 2, but exit turn 4 has been a lot of scares for drivers so far.
Yeah, and Richmond's a really fun track to drive, Sam. It really is a driver's track. I think if you talk to a lot of drivers, they'll tell you they really enjoy racing here. Just, you know, it's one of those tracks that it's really just a driver's track is the best way I can say it. You can kind of manhandle the car a little bit, manipulate it, and it's just a really fun track to race.
Last week, we talked about drivers being very aggressive and battling with every person around them. Isaiah Sutherland, one of those that was battling for a chance to win, as would have been on playoff drivers. Missed out on that winning factor, but 14 currently running with Ken Campbell. Campbell, again, had a scare earlier, about 10 laps ago, with Nick Crawford. Crawford has fallen back to 17th. I mean, yes, 17th place. The 7 of Douglas Newbigging also falling back to 14th, as these two continue to battle back and forth between the 14 and the 15 is Nick Crawford trying to find a way to get by Ollie for the sake of the 24.
Yeah, Isaiah Sutherland was definitely not shy last week, Sam. We can put it that way. He was extremely aggressive. He was up there working hard trying to get that race win, and as he should be. You know, we talked about this a little bit last week about, you know, the different agenda of some of these guys. The guys that aren't in the playoffs, they're here just for trophies and just to win. And so, you know, Isaiah Sutherland, I'm sure he's going to continue to be aggressive. But as we look at Nick Crawford here, you know, running 16th, Sam, I think that's a little further back than maybe he was hoping to be at this point in the race.
Absolutely, especially when for Nick Crawford, the driver he's circling up, and I need to be ahead of Douglas Newbane as well as the 16 of Josh McNaughton behind both. That's not a place you want to find yourself. As I know in the chat, we usually have some fans cheering on the 08 Brian Johnson. That's Brian with an eye in the 08 machine, and currently rolling back in 21st position. Trying to come off last week, pretty solid overall run. Got caught up in a wreck that ultimately ruined his night, but finding consistency in the first half of the race, trying to figure out how to translate that to the second half is the goal for this 08 machine, but still a great run for himself. But ahead of them, going to be for the lead, Zach Hall attempting to make a pass once again on Larry Yingling. The fresh air, so important to worry about your tires, and Zach Hall no longer wants to be patient, but yet to lead a lap. That bonus point could be crucial for that of the 32 if he just wants to outright point his way into the next round.
Yeah, I mean, anything can happen, and I like seeing this out of Zach Hall early, Sam. I think normally when we think of Zach Hall, we think of him, you know, conservative, take his time, be good on the long runs, but I like his demeanor so far early in this race, and he wants to get up front, he wants to lead, he wants to control this thing. He knows he's likely in a must-win scenario, and he's working hard to get that lead from Larry Yingling, but Larry's not going to give it up too easy.
No, he's not, and we've seen the outside lane be strong in the early portions of this run, and even into 25 laps into this race. The drivers are still putting on a great show as we are officially at the halfway marker of the stage. We will have a a competition caution, not a stage caution, but a competition caution that will be at the end of lap 50 unless we have a caution happen beforehand. There are no bonus points that we grab at the competition caution, but it certainly could be a lot of knowledge you can take in on how you'd like to race the rest of tonight's run, as Zach Hall just has to sit back and fall in line. Once again, round 2 of attempting for the pass for the lead doesn't work out.
Yeah, I can tell. I can just see it already. Just the frustration probably building for Zach Hall. He feels like he's a little bit better right now, but it's so hard to complete the pass here, Sam. When you're equal to the guy in front of you, or maybe you're just a smudge better, you really have to be, you know, a good 10th to 2/10 better to easily pass somebody. So the guys that are pretty close, and you can see him, he's kind of moving around a little bit, trying to kind of diamond that corner, get a little run. But Brian P. Johnson's probably loving this, Sam. He's probably just taking notes, eating some popcorn, and Zach Hall, again, right up on that quarter panel. He's trying all he can to get the lead.
Trying to get back up to the bottom and maybe change it up. Maybe try the outside lane. That's where Brian P. Johnson is actually running pretty consistently through 3 and 4 is that middle groove. We'll see if anyone wants to try that and run out, as Benjamin Nelson might be showing signs that he wants to move forward. He kept on falling back. At this moment, he's being pressured by Brandon Colley in the one machine. Colley having a good run for himself in 6th place. We'll see if he can stay in that position. Shane Terrian as well trying to advance his way forward in the 9.
Yeah, a couple good runs by these guys as well. And you know, you said it, Benjamin Nelson, our winner from last week. You know, we saw him, that extreme strategy of really saving his tires, and now just slowly starting to pick his way forward. But yeah, Brandon Colley, Shane Terrian, all guys having really solid runs early.
As we're seeing these drivers continue to race on the tire wear factor, we talked about how that is going to be something to watch out for here tonight. Well, the drivers in the first 3 laps of the race put down their fastest laps of their runs, putting down lap times of 22.1 seconds was the fastest lap, and that was put down by Zach Hall, who runs in 2nd place currently. That last lap, though, that was just put down, drivers are over a second slower than that time. They are really feeling that drop-off, as we're only just 30 laps into this run.
I will say the one thing that may help them a little bit is at least the time of day that these guys are racing, where it's getting into the evening time, I imagine we're probably going to finish under the lights, Sam. So a little bit more grip than if they were racing it at noon or midday. The track would be a lot hotter, a lot slicker, and that tire wear would be even worse. But even in the cooler temperatures, as here you go, you can see the track fats pop up right here. Even under the cooler temperatures, Richmond's known for tire wear.
As you can see, it's ambient temperature going to be 81 degrees Fahrenheit. Track temp is 88 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a cool track the drivers are dealing with, but it's the wind factor the drivers are dealing with a lot more. That was up to 5. It was up to 10 miles per hour. We checked at it for a quick second. It drops down to 5. And it's going to be bobbling back and forth just like the drivers are on track on screen, as Cody Reed kind of being a thorn in the side of the 38 currently, is that of Christopher Norris and Reed both starting to fall back. Shane Terrian's found a wall. He was trying to stay in touch with Benjamin Nelson moving forward, but instead we'll just have to stay in line. And now Joshua Kanata is on the charge to try to make some of these passes forward.
Yeah, Joshua Kanata definitely starting to move his way forward, as well as Benjamin Nelson. We talked about him kind of leading this little pack right here. The 79's moved up to 4th place. Brandon Colley, as well as the 52 there of Cody Reed, started to slide back a little bit. So this is kind of your comers and goers group, Sam. You can see a couple guys starting to fall off, and some guys who were a little easier on their tires starting to make their way forward a little bit.
Did you just see that 3 and 4? He might do it again. Ryan Kelly ripped the wall through 3 and 4 and got a huge run. Now moved down to the middle groove. This 3 of Ryan Kelly, I mean, he was so strong in the first half of the season. Missed a couple of races. Kind of put him in a precarious spot coming to the end of the regular season. And almost missed out on make the playoffs. Now in a place where he just needs to have a good, solid run here tonight. Finish inside of the top 10. You'll make it into the playoffs. I mean, into the next round of the playoffs and run for a championship. This 3 looking good as a big slide by Cody Reed in front of the 3 and the 16.
Yeah, Cody Reed had that thing pointed sideways there, but I missed that initial call there, Sam, of Ryan Kelly running that extreme high line. But one thing I got to give kudos to him for, he's not afraid to move around and try different lines. We saw him at Kansas last week. He made a phenomenal move, did a 3-wide pass for the lead running that upper groove. So keep an eye on this 3 car as the race goes on.
Trying to find their way to move forward. It's Joshua Kanata as well as Cody Reed, runners that are on Monday nights and have put on a great show, battling for their chances for championships as they'll figure out who's running and making the Final 4 on their Monday night race. It's the field for had of seeing Christopher Norris, Brandon Colley, Shane Terrian still battling for 5th place, but right now it looks like the 1 and as well the 9 trying to work as 1 going forward.
We sure are, Sam, and I'm looking at the live timing and scoring here. That old 79 car, Sam, Benjamin Nelson, he's starting to creep his way up there. He's running about a 1/10 to 2/10 quicker than some of our leaders in front. So he's got it down just under a second and a half right now, about 1.4, 1.3 seconds. So I know we're coming up on our competition caution here in a little bit, but 79 looks pretty good for the long run right now.
And competition caution again at the end of lap 50 as Ryan P. Johnson trying to make the pass on Zach Hall. And Brian seems to have the edge to try to make this pass, but the more they stay side by side, the closer Nelson creeps in. He's going to be right there. The question then will loom on the 79. Where does he want to place that machine? To go high, low, or does he just sit and wait for someone to advance forward?
Yeah, I think at this point you can see Zach Hall under attack here from Brian P. Johnson. Zach Hall may have pushed it a little too hard trying to get that lead from Larry Yingling, and I think that'll be something to keep an eye on as we hit pit stops as well, Sam. Can Larry Yingling get in, get out, first car, or can Zach Hall, Brian P. Johnson, or even Benjamin Nelson maybe try to jump a couple positions, and who's going to be able to grab that clean air, because I think that's going to be really important.
That's going to be important. I think also after this stage, I'm curious on the amount of drivers that are going to recognize, okay, we don't need to push, be aggressive initially on a run. We need to protect our tires to get back in the fight later on in a stint. Curious if after this stage we're not going to see that aggression level that we've seen at other tracks. Maybe we'll start to calm down after competition caution comes out. But what's not calming down is this battling action for fifth place. Colley's gotten close to try to get by Norris, but Shane Tarian seems to be getting irritable. Doesn't want to lose too much ground to those front runners. The 9 wants a win. He's strong here at Richmond, and they're going to be trying 3 wide down into turn number 3 for fifth place. Shane Tarian on the inside. Colley's going to hold the middle. Norris able to move forward. But a big whoa up. And for Norris, he had to send it down into turn number 3 to make sure they didn't stay 3 wide.
Yeah, each of those drivers did a really good job there, kind of giving each other room. And, you know, we talk about the multiple lines at tracks like Kansas, Homestead. You don't really think about like a short track at Richmond running multiple lines, but you really can, Sam. You can run all over the place. You can run the yellow line, you can run the middle, run the top, you know, wherever you need to go to make speed. As we can see, you know, Benjamin Nelson's working on passing these guys now, trying to move himself up to the second position.
And with us being within 5 laps to this caution being thrown, if a yellow flag would come out, that would count as our comp caution. And as well, drivers recognize, okay, once the leader crosses the line after this lap, pit road will be closed. If anyone was thinking about making a sneaky play of maybe pitting, but that was, I think it's going to be a little bit overzealous if you thought about splitting this 50-lap run in half and trying to make sure you stayed on the lead lap.
Yeah, this track, you know, you're probably not going to look to do something like that just because you're probably going to go one, if not multiple laps down. So looks like everyone's going to just try to run it to the competition caution here.
And pit road is officially closed. A big huge shout out to race control of Steve Benjamin, who's been running race control all season long, as Larry Yingling continues to try to pull away as he puts James Hackworth Jr. 1 lap down. The 23 always expected to get out of the way and not cause any issues. He loves to just be out on track racing with this group of drivers. And the 23 lets the group of 3, second, third, and fourth continue to race on. Zach Hall and Brian P. Johnson, it's like we never left them as they stay side by side. But Benjamin Nelson has moved up to second. But Larry Yingling, after Ben just gave up kind of that lead and was more so thinking about his tires, 67 on the other foot, kept the lead, never gave it back up, and Larry Yingling will be your comp caution winner here. And that 67 looks fast right now, Josh, and even with Ben protecting his tires, the 67 was able to keep the lead.
He sure was, Sam, and it honestly reminds me a lot of last week. Larry Yingling and Douglas Newbigging battled a lot. Larry dominated the early portion of the race, so I'm interested to see if, you know, Larry can continue this run. As looks like pit road's going to be busy right off the bat, Sam.
Drivers trying to enter pit road, but there's also trouble further on back, as it looked like some contact for drivers as that of the 08 of Brian with an I Johnson locking up his tires and accidentally getting into the inside walls. Small little bump. The 08 is good to continue on. I saw a driver sideways on the backstretch and got a little bit concerned, but the rest of the field, pit road, here we go. 4 tires and fuel, but you easily can make a mistake. Don't slide through your box. Hope that your crew gives you a fast pit stall and pit run. It looks like there might have been a couple of drivers having a little bit of a slide through their box. Got to get a clean run out if you want to make sure that you keep this lead position if you're Larry Yingling, and if anyone else wants to advance on the 67.
Larry Yingling's going to be the first to shoot out of his spots, and he's going to maintain that lead off pit road, Sam.
He will do so. And luckily with iRacing, when you've got the drivers in their box, if you stay that far right, you can drive through everyone. That's exactly what Larry Yingling did. Didn't pull out, just went straight. It was plenty of time for him to keep the lead out of pit road, as Brian with an I Johnson stays out for an extra lap. Will pull into pit road after leading the lap for himself. As the 67 going to be our leader here. I mean, Josh, first 50 laps in the books. Anything you noticed there that was kind of shocking, or anything that was seemed pretty normal from a Richmond race?
Well, I mean, I was impressed by Larry Yingling jumping out and getting the lead early, and you know, he didn't look like he was saving too much, Sam, and he was able to maintain that lead. Obviously, he had to fend off a couple battles from Zach Hall, but you know, Zach Hall, Brian P. Johnson, 2 of our, you know, seemingly must-win drivers running up front, battling each other. It's what we love to see. Maybe some guys and who are a little closer to the points don't want to see those guys up there potentially grabbing this win. And then, you know, Benjamin Nelson, our winner, who saved very aggressively uh, was the fastest car there at the end. He didn't quite catch Larry, but another 5 to 10 laps, it could have been a different story. So I think it's these guys kind of use that first 50 laps or so maybe as a test session, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of knowledge they applied.
Well, with our 10 playoff drivers that showed up, that made it to this round, again, the two absolutes that we have currently, Benjamin Nelson, after his win last week, is locked in. Cedric Hunter, missing today's race, will be not moving on in the playoffs, so it leaves us with a total of 8 drivers, 5 spots to be grabbed. And Nick Crawford, Brian B. Johnson, Zach Hall, the 3 drivers that are outside looking in coming into tonight. But one of the drivers that was just on the cut line in 5th in points, Douglas Newbigging, struggling here tonight in the early going. The 7 going to be all the way back in 19th position on this restart. He's got a lot of work to do as Thomas Waltzer only able to do a start in part 57. Going to be our first driver to call it a night.
Yeah, I mean, a little surprising to see Douglas Newbiggin struggling as much as he has so far, Sam. And before we get back to green here, I want to say this is something that we might be on the lookout as well. 105 laps to go. These guys can go about 80 some laps on fuel. So, you would think if you're up front, maybe split the stage, but it's going to leave the door open for guys if they want to stretch it out those full 80 laps and maybe try to grab a caution. So we'll see what happens here.
Whose strategy is going to be the better one as we are done with competition cautions? It's all about who's going to get the win at the end of the day. And Larry Yingling not waiting for anyone. The rocket ship took off, and the 67 is already going to be 2 car lengths ahead of the battle for second. It's going to be Christopher Norris as well as for Benjamin Nelson. Side by side off the exit of turn 2, down into 3. And it's all Larry Yingling for the iRacing on my anniversary 160 at Richmond. And with Joshua Kanata, he might be racing on his anniversary. The 16's doing everything it is possible to make sure he moves on to the next round.
Yeah, so far so good for the 16, and we're seeing this heated battle for second. Christopher Norris in the 38 machine. It's the first time we've seen him make a little bit of noise tonight, as looks like Benjamin Nelson is working on trying to wrestle that second position away from him, but and now it's a battle for third. So interesting to see if Ben decides to drop back as much as he did, or if he's going to try to maintain a little bit more track position this time. So.
Well, based on the fact that he tried to make that pass on Christopher Norris, I'd say that he's made the switch, that he needs to keep the track position and not trust that he's going to get all that time back at the end of a run. And even if we split this run in half, he wasn't close enough to even pass Larry. It had to be an audible call of moving forward, get slightly more aggressive, use up your tires just a little bit more to stay in touch, and then start to protect your tires in the middle of this stint when you're 15, 20 laps into this go, and see where your tires will lie later on as the battle for second continues to rage. And Benjamin Nelson, the more that he stays on the outside lane, the more he's using up those tires. So I would say 79, this is going quite backwards from where he wants to be.
Yeah, it's almost a reverse strategy so far. We see Benjamin Nelson, fighting pretty hard, and the 32 of Zach Hall has slid back to the 5th position now. So I don't know if that's by design or maybe he just didn't get as good of a restart, but we saw him fall off just a little bit there at the tail end of that run, as the number 3 of Ryan Kelly starting to come into the picture now, Sam.
Ryan Kelly came into tonight 4th in points with a 9-point buffer over Nick Crawford, and he's known for that second half of the race, just turning on the wick and being there at the end for a top 5 finish. This 3 is going to be a huge threat to watch out for if he moves on and makes it to our championship 6, as it's going to be Homestead as well as Chicagoland. The last 2 races of the season for the top 6 drivers that make it out of the points here tonight. We'll have those 2 races to settle who is the champion of season 7. As Ryan Kelly throws it down low on Zach Hall, and Hall's going to be thinking, this is not the way I wanted this restart to go, but maybe I got to protect my tires. Do a Ben Nelson, settle back in, protect these tires for later on in the run, and then I'll get all this positioning back for those that take off now.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be his thought process at this point, Sam, but you don't want to lose too much track position, because even if you save your tires, you're going to have to use them up at some point trying to pass everyone back. So, you got to find that sweet spot, right? Give up a little bit just to save, but you don't want to give up too much, and I think we saw that there where he just battled back on the 3 of Ryan Kelly and slid back in front of him.
as we drop back to see Joshua Kanata heavily pressured. That rear bumper has not been safe. He's had Cody Reed very close to the rear bumper, almost making contact. Ken Campbell has been there. And the ultimate driver that Kanata is watching out for to make sure he is ahead or within at least 5 positions. Nick Crawford has rebounded up to 12th place, but he's going to be trapped on the outside lane. And Kanata, I mean, with the way that this track, yes, it's multi-groove, but preferably a lot of drivers want to stay on that inside lane or hug the yellow line through the corners. We've seen it all season long. That rear bumper to front bumper contact can be highly detrimental to your drivers in front. And Kanata's just thinking, please do not tap my back bumper and throw away this race.
Oh yeah, it doesn't take much, Sam. Just for you to check up a little bit early, and then for the driver behind you to drive it in maybe a little too deep, and the bumpers don't line up, and all of a sudden you're spinning. So Joshua Kanata doing a really good job tonight so far. He's doing what he needs to do, running P9. Wants to represent well for his anniversary and for his wife. So hopefully he can continue to stay here and be part of that final 6 battling for the championship.
Hoping for it. Right now, Larry Yingling leading the way, but we do have some shout outs we got to make before we find ourselves later on in this race, and that's going to be Roasted Gems Coffee. Roasted Gems Coffee, the title sponsor of the WSSR Cup Series. They've been on board the last couple of seasons, and it's been incredible to have a sponsor that wants to stay attached to a great league like the WSSR Cup Series. And remember, when purchasing your coffee to start your day off right, go on over to roastedgems.com and use the promo code WSSR when purchasing from their wide range of selection. And as well, huge shout out to Trophy Smack. Trophy Smack's been the title, has been the championship trophy to grab. It's been a ring in the last couple of seasons, but this season it is an actual custom trophy from Trophy Smack. And you as well, as audience members, you can go get your own Trophy Smack, either a wall smack, which is a metal plate image that you can choose whatever image you want on it. You can purchase that now, or go get your custom trophy, championship belt, ring, or more at TrophySmack.com. Use the promo code WSSRSmack to get yourself 10% off on purchase. And lastly is a shout out to Brandon Colley's mom, who's also sponsored the qualifying results here tonight, and I know she's rooting for Colley to get a top 10 finish and kind of get on the right foot moving forward for the one machine, as we've been keeping our eyes set on the Nick Crawford, Joshua Kanata, and the mixed bags of drivers around him. This has been intense, Josh, watching the 74, trying to make these passes work, but he's just stalling out and not able to get by Ken Campbell.
Yeah, he's been working hard tonight, Sam, so far, just right outside that top 10, and you can see the 16 of Joshua Kanata. So, for Nick Crawford's scenario, he knows he needs to finish in front of the 16 car. Came into tonight only 6 points behind Joshua Kanata. So, you definitely don't want to see him running in front of you. You want to get to his bumper, get past him, and try to gap him as much as you can.
Yeah, the big thing here, numbers-wise, for Nick Crawford, he has to be at least 6 positions ahead of Joshua Kanata to make sure he's got enough positions to get ahead of the 16. Is getting a little bit more frisky with Isaiah Sutherland not allowing Crawford to dive back down low to the inside lane. And then also for Nick Crawford, he's keeping his eye out on Douglas Newbegin, because for Nick, he's got to be at least 7 positions ahead of the 7, and right now Douglas Newbegin's done a great job recovering and is now up to 15th, leaving Nick Crawford in a spot where he would not advance points wise from this position.
Yeah, fortunately for Douglas Newbegin, he's been consistent enough in these earlier races where he came into tonight 5 points above the cut line, Sam. So he's got a little bit of buffer, but I still wouldn't feel safe running back here in 15th, where anything could happen, and you're kind of in the eye of the storm back here.
Yeah, I mean, even with where drivers are running right now, looking for Brian P. Johnson. Brian can move up to 2nd place. That puts Douglas Newbegin in a pretty tricky spot, because if he falls to finish where he's at now, Douglas actually would be bounced out, and it would be Brian P. Johnson trying to point his way forward. There's a lot of point situations that are looking tricky, and even where Nick Crawford's running, he wouldn't be able to advance. So Douglas, even at this current moment, that 7 is not safe. He needs to move up and make sure he's inside of the top 13. If he wants to make sure he's moving on. Otherwise, it could be a scare for that 7.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for him, Sam, is he controls his own destiny in a way. So if he can get up here, get closer to the top 10, maybe further inside the top 10, he's going to feel a lot more comfortable. But guys like Ryan P. Johnson, I mean, that's a huge opportunity for him because not only does he need to finish well, Sam, I mean, we talked about him and Zach Hall being seemingly in a must-win, but, in that situation you just laid out, it could work out where the points could swing in his favor if he finishes really high up there, second or third, and then, Douglas has a bad night. He could, in fact, point his way in, so it could be fun to keep an eye on that.
Certainly will be, and for Zach Hall, he's also trying to keep in mind of if I can move up 2 positions ahead of Ryan B. Johnson and stay inside of our top 3, the 32 can be in a position to try to point his way forward. As we're watching the battling on with Nick Crawford as well as Cody Reed right on the 74 machine of Crawford. As you see Cody Reed working that outside lane, still not able to advance forward, but Crawford showing little moments of trying to make this inside lane work, but it just seems like we're at a point in this race, it's just too difficult to try to make these passes on the inside if we don't have the tires to get back on the throttle sooner.
Yeah, it's almost two forms of strategy, Sam. You either got to go right at the beginning when you've got that restart, or you got to kind of fall back and save some tire and try to get by them later in the run, because just like you're saying, where the 52 here of Cody Reed just doing a really good job hanging on the outside. It's really hard for these guys to sneak by him on the bottom.
As the drivers continue to race against one another, we're at the halfway point of tonight's race, and it's Nick Crawford finally able to slot his way past Cody Reed. Isaiah Sutherland's going to try to make this pass work for himself, but as we're at the halfway point of tonight's race, we will do a quick step away for ourselves here at Freaky Fast Broadcasting. When we come back, you're going to get more racing here at Richmond for the race, the round of 10 cutoff race for the iRacing on my anniversary 160, as we will be back right after this to give you the end of who's moving on to run for a championship.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Basket can't defend. He's got the outside line for the second part, and he can't hold on.
Going the long way around. We're going to be 3 wide for the lead as they all come to the line. Who is going to take it in the end?
And here comes Lockwood. He's going to make the move to the outside. Quinn tries to force him off a little bit, but there he goes. It's going to be side by side through turn 1.
Will he be able to cover him off? He does. Weaving back to the left-hand side. Reynolds is trying everything. The kitchen sink is being thrown at it.
They're leaning on each other. Coming into turn number 3. It's going to be a drag race through 3 and 4. Coming back to the line. Here comes Frisch on the bottom.
Richard's going to hold the inside. Tries to be the late breaker here. They're going to be side by side through the final chicane. They bang doors, but keep it clean.
As they're still 4 wide on the run down into the back straightaway. Demerit's looking for a line as well. What is going on in Michigan?
Novak into the fence. They're still beating and banging.
Oh my
and to the line.
He is much faster coming through there. Is there damage on Challenger? Abramitis is ahead. There's going to be a race to the line. Who is going to get it?
And we're back, and it's under caution. Just happening a few moments ago, Ollie Fonseca and Douglas Newbigin making contact with one another on the entry of turn 1. And Cody Reed, sadly going to be trapped 1 lap down, but he was the only driver that pitted, so I believe the 52 will be getting his lucky dog spot. But for Douglas Newbigin, his night of terror just continues to snowball. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Freaky Fast Broadcasting for the WSSR Roasted Gems Cup Series. My name's Sam Dyer. With me up at the booth is going to be Joshua Altus, as well as Robert Moyer Jr. running productions. And into pit road is going to be Larry Yingling and others. Well, as they're getting their pit stops done, we'll give you the rundown in a few moments. But we got to give some shout outs to our amazing sponsors once again, being Roasted Gems Coffee. Roasted Gems Coffee talked about how they've got a wide selection of flavors. Well, you should really check it out. They've got plenty for you. If you got a sweet tooth, if you like the bitter, or if you need maximum caffeine, their wide selection is made for you to get the coffee that gets your day started off right with great quality. Remember to use the promo code WSSR for 5% off at your Roasted Gems coffee purchase. And as well, huge shout out to Trophy Smack. We talked about how there's different ways you can customize at Trophy Smack. Well, one of the major ways you can customize is with their product called Wall Smack. Wall Smack is a metal plate. You customly pick what image you want on that plate. And what's great is they've got multiple ways that you could show off your wall smack. By putting it on the wall, put it on a stand, and place it somewhere in your room. You got to check out, make that decision yourself. But when you're purchasing your wall smack, remember to use the promo code WSSR SMACK for 10% off on your wall smack or any other purchases that you would like. It's again, they've got trophies, belts, rings, and all customizable for you. Thank you so much to the amazing sponsors for the WSSR Cup Series. But Josh, pit road's done, and once again, it's Larry Yingling leading the way.
Larry Yingling's leading the way, Sam, but I want to go back to Douglas Newbigin. I went back and watched exactly what happened, and it was actually the 7 of Douglas Newbigin who ran over the back of Ollie Fonseca. It looked like the 24 was maybe holding the 7 up a little bit. 7 maybe ran out of patience just a little bit. We talked about the stressful situation he's in, and man, that just is going to make it that much harder for him, Sam. He's fallen all the way back now to the 20th position, and it's opening the door for guys like Zach Hall and Brian P. Johnson to potentially point their way in tonight.
Yeah, it gives a completely new sight for those drivers that they've got a chance to go for this one. But again, they also have to make sure that there are certain positions ahead of Nick Crawford. Crawford, currently on this restart, going to be back in 11th place. Brian P. Johnson is in 4th, Zach Hull in 3rd, and there is only a 6-point difference between Nick Crawford and Brian P. Johnson. Then there's an 8th position difference that's got to be made between Crawford and Zach Hull. And right where the drivers lie, it is right on the cut line for both. And so it's going to get interesting and wild to watch how this restart's going to go. The end of this race, the math, the calculators, they're all going to have to be brought out to see who's in or out. Because I got a feeling we may not be done with these cautions with this first on-track incident to bring out a yellow, and with the crucial timing of us coming up to 60 laps to go. Josh, it's time to get your popcorn ready because the action's about to take off.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this last little stint here is going to be just a little bit longer than that opening stint that we ran at 50 laps. So about 10 laps longer. We'll see if it stays green. Larry Yingling's dominated so far, Sam. Let's see if he can stay up there.
He's led every lap so far except for one that was led by the 08 under pacing with our first yellow. But it's green flag out for I'm Racing on My Anniversary 160 as Joshua Kanata's running on his anniversary and still has a chance to make it to the round of 6 and race for a championship. Larry Yingling has the better launch, side by side for second, side by side for fourth, and as well for sixth as they head down into turn number 3.
Yeah, some aggressive driving is about to take place, Sam. These guys know it's crunch time. It's time to go. We see the 9 of Shane Tyrion starting to flex some muscles tonight, Sam. Get on the outside of Zach Hall back here in the top 5.
It's been patience for the 9. It's been patience for the 3. A little bit of aggression for other drivers deeper in the field on how they want to attack this restart. Comparatively on how they've ran most of this race. Again, like you threw out, this run, it's going to be about 10 laps longer than our competition caution. It was 50 laps. This is going to be impactful if you do want to run similarly as you did in the competition caution stage of this race, or do you change it up and just get a little bit more aggressive up front because you recognize, hey, there is a chance a yellow flag could come out and track position could be key at this moment.
It sure could, Sam, and I think it's just all about kind of managing your emotions too as you're a driver. I mean, as a driver, you're just programmed to go, right? You just want to go. You got fresh tires. You can see the guy in front of you, and you just want to pass him. But sometimes you got to have a little bit of self-discipline and save those tires. So it's going to be fun to watch that balance.
And watch out for the non-playoff drivers, as we've got majority of our playoff drivers inside of our top 6, but 7th, 8th, 9th, as well as 10th. Non-playoff drivers that have been showing some slight aggression as Colley broke loose on the restart off the exit of turn 4, but he has been trying to rebound back. And Isaiah Sutherland, we talked about how aggressive he was last week. Well, he's starting to show some of that aggression. And Ken Campbell, kind of out of nowhere, has been showing his kind of flexing of, I've got a chance to run aggressive and try to get up front.
Yeah, absolutely. 8th, 9th, and 10th place, all non-playoff drivers, Sam. And big shout outs to the 14 of Isaiah Sutherland, as well as the one of Brandon Colley. You know, we've seen him, tend to fall back sometimes in some of these longer runs, and he's done a really good job running up front in the top 10 tonight. So, really good run by both of those guys.
Fantastic run at this position as Brian B. Johnson up to 2nd. For that of Nick Crawford back to 12th. And Crawford, he needs to advance in positioning if he wants to have a chance. Make sure he's up plenty of positions in front of Douglas Newbigging, and as well isn't in a spot to just gift Brian B. Johnson the spot for points, but and point his way into the next round. As this looks to be a Larry Yingling win, unless something dramatically changes here as the field continues to keep it straight. Ryan Noel in the 77, haven't talked much about him. We had a couple of moments early in the race as the 77 putting the pressure on the back bumper of Nick Crawford, as well as some other drivers we haven't really seen this in a while. James Heater back out on track as he's running difficultly with Douglas Newbigging with the 7 on the inside.
Yeah, these guys got to be careful because Douglas Newbigging is on a mission right now, involved in that last caution. He's moved up to the 16th position, which is about as high as he's gotten tonight. Sam, we've seen him around maybe the 14th or 15th position at his highest peak, but he's made his way back up to 16th, but he's got a couple guys more in front of him that he's going to be on a mission to pick off.
And he needs to make sure that he at least grabs 2 more positions to make sure he's ahead of Brian B. Johnson, because right now, when Brian runs, he would be moving on in the playoffs and be taking over that 7th numbers position. And for Douglas Newbigging, he's been so strong in the playoffs. That first round, the round of 16, he found himself in a victory lane at Auto Club, had a pretty good run at Talladega. He's been showing very good qualifying positions. He got the pole at Talladega, got the pole last week in Kansas. The 7 tonight just seems so off compared to what we've seen for most of the season for Douglas Newbigging.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just certain tracks don't line up with certain drivers, Sam. Richmond's a very tricky track. It's a fun track to drive, like I talked about earlier for drivers, but sometimes doesn't match your style for whatever reason, and you know, if you get spread out, you get stuck back in the pack. It's really hard to pass, and he just doesn't really seem like he's been able to go anywhere.
Driver that qualified in summer top 10, trying to make his way forward. Cody Reed, who made his pit stop under green flag conditions, and then the yellow flag popped out, forcing this 52 to have to take a wave around, and on older tires, trying to advance forward is the 52 as the 6 of Brad Delph, just trying to survive the night for himself. It's been a rough one. He's had to make a couple of pit stops trying to get damage repaired. The 6 running for a top 20 position if he can get it done, and Ryan with an eye Johnson also putting some scares as the driver's up in the outside wall. That's going to be Chris Stitz losing over 4 positions for himself.
Yeah, Chris Stitz got up in the marbles there. Didn't quite see what was the beginning cause of that, but fortunately he was able to pull that 17 machine out of the wall and keep it going. And you know, that's one thing we haven't really touched on, Sam, is these cars, for whatever reason, if you get any contact with the wall, that wall just seems to suck you in, and it's really hard to get off the wall. So, you know, heads up driving by Chris Stitz being able to get out and keep it going.
Yeah, went back and watched 17. Just entry of turn 1, got too high, brushed the wall, and was caught on it for about half a corner before he could turn off and find himself back to running at full song. As drivers up front, top 6 still 6 playoff drivers. One of them, at this current moment, if the race was to end now, would not move on to run for championship, and that would be Zach Hall in the 32, which, I mean, at this point, Zach Hall, he's shown pace that he can be a contender up front, but what does he really have for those front runners to try to steal a position away points-wise? And he's got to pass 2 of the strongest drivers of the season, Shane Terrian in the 9, who's our regular season champion, and Benjamin Nelson, the most winningest driver this season, coming into tonight. I mean, Ben has been just so good. 4 wins, 4 poles, 6 top 5s, and 7 top 10s. I mean, Ben's been the most consistent driver of the season, and he's trying to carry forward, but Shane Terrian says, I would like a position, if possible, to just have a little bit more comfortability.
Yeah, Shane Terrian's doing a really good job of really moving his way forward as this race gets in its later stages, Sam. We've only got just over 40 laps to go all of a sudden, only 43 laps remaining in this race. Shane Terrian is starting to put his name in the hat for potentially trying to make a late charge for this win.
Yeah, I mean, that was something we kind of talked about right when we went to the commercial break was, man, I can't believe how quickly this race has progressed forward. But a big thing that you have to attribute that to is we have been green. This was kind of a shocker. Again, the trend for this season is for all races that have been under the length of a 1.5 mile track have found themselves having 10 or more cautions coming out during that race. And tonight, it's been less than 5. Kind of a shocking number to see. That's even accounting for our competition caution that came out at the end of lap 50.
Yeah, I mean, I just attribute it to really clean racing, Sam. I mean, we saw it last week. We saw some cautions come out late, but you know, we were just absolutely blown away by the quality of racing last week. Guys just running all over each other, running the different lines, and being able to do it in a clean and fun way. So not quite as much action filled tonight. You know, these Richmond races that are known to be able to go green a little bit once everyone kind of gets spread out, but still a lot of time left in this race, so anything could happen.
And currently for this race, Ryan P. Johnson and Douglas Newbigging, based off where they're running right now, would be tied. So those drivers in a position where Douglas has the power. If he can advance forward, get by his teammate of Brian Noel, 7 would be having just 1 point, good enough to move on to the next round.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about earlier, Sam, is Douglas Newbigging's advantage is, you know, he controls his own destiny, and he's got a lot more cars in front of him that he can pass. Let's not forget it, every car equals 1 point, right? So as he continues to move forward, he passes one car, 2 cars, it's 1-2 points, and Brian P. Johnson's about as far up as he can get right now, Sam, in terms of pointing his way in.
And he's trying to get some type of little bit of extra speed. The last couple of laps, he has been slightly faster than Larry Yangling. And is it enough to try to run down the 67, get that win, and not even have to worry about points, which would knock Douglas Newbigging into a tricky situation. But as well, looking at Douglas Newbigging, again, coming in tonight, only had a 1-point advantage over Joshua Kanata. Kanata is 3 positions ahead of the 7. Kanata technically would be moving up to 5th in points. It's a little bit of juggling action on where drivers are at points-wise.
Yeah, absolutely, and I don't think it's going to be the last we're going to be calculating, Sam, because things are moving around so fast, and Nick Crawford has been chasing that 16's bumper all night, and he's finally gotten up to him. Kanata's been a couple cars ahead of him pretty much all night, so this is the closest Nick Crawford's seen that 16.
And for the battle for 13th position, the change of guard goes to the 7 at Douglas Newbigging after getting by his teammate Noel, not even putting up a fight. He'll move out of the way. Joshua Kanata now just going to be having to fight to make sure that he's staying in this position, because if he falls back to 12th, he would be tied with Douglas Newbigging. And then the math even gets even trickier for those drivers. There's only about a less than a second gap between the 7 and the 16. And looking at the advantage, Douglas Newbigging's been one of the fastest drivers out on track. Sutherland and Zach Hall have been the fastest drivers inside of our top 10, though.
Yeah, I'm impressed so far by this late charge by Douglas Newbigging, Sam. I mean, he's really run outside the top 15 pretty much all night, but up to 13th now, and now he's got the 2 playoff drivers in front of him. Nick Crawford and Joshua Kanata are the next 2 on his list.
And Kanata's just fighting for his playoff hopes at this position, recognizing, okay, if I can stay in front, this is a good place to be. I just don't want to be that driver that's 6th in points with how close Brian P. Johnson is closing in on Larry Yingling. It's not safe as Colley ships it down to the inside of Ken Campbell. And this is right in front of the 16 and the 74. This is not really a comfortable position to be, but Kanata's going to take it high and try to make the pass on the 1. This is massive for Kanata.
Kanata's going to get that run on the top side here as they go down the front stretch. He's going to try to drive it off down into turn 1 and 2. Got Colley right underneath him. He's going to try to roll that center of the corner, get that run off, and I think Joshua Kanata's just about going to get him.
Able to finally clear by the 1, and now that solidifies Joshua Kanata back into 5th in points. Douglas Newbigging is back to 6th in points. This is roughly where we're expecting drivers to be. And for Brian P. Johnson, that 28 is in a must-win scenario, and he's in the prime position to make the pass for the win. Right on the back bumper of Larry Yingling is the 28 Trophy Smack Machine. Talked about the clutch factor. Where is it at? Well, right now we are seeing that Season 1 champ trying to grab his 2nd ever championship, but he needs to make the round of 16 even attempt that, as this 28 has fallen 2nd in points season after season, it feels like. Just Brian is always the driver that we know has a chance to go for a win, and if he's able to get the win here tonight, he would tie as the most winningest driver in the WSSR with Vincent Sora. And what a crucial time it would be to get a win.
Oh, it would be no bigger time than now, Sam. He's brought the Trophy Smat scheme, which is one of the title sponsors of the series, on the car all year. He's been close. He's ran well. He's had equipment failure in some races earlier this year. Just has not been able to get that win. And Sam, I'm curious as we get down to the final laps of this thing, how desperate is he going to be? I mean, Larry Yingling came into the night 13 points above the cut line. I mean, I'm not saying wreck the man, but maybe put a little bumper to him if you need to.
Yeah, and that was 13 points to Cedric Hunter. It bounces up even bigger now with Cedric not even here, as that's up to now 15 points for Larry Yingling. Back to Nick Crawford, and even with the bonus point of leading a lap, leading the most laps since he's been out there all night long, adds up to 17-point buffer that this machine in 67 has coming into tonight.
Yeah, so with that in mind, and Benjamin Nelson behind him, I mean, if I'm the 28 of Brian P. Johnson, I'm thinking, hey, I can send this guy an apology later. Hopefully it won't knock him out of the playoffs. But if he's going to do something, he's got to do it quick, Sam, because he's got that 79 breathing down his back now.
Yeah, you need to make the move, and you're going to make it. You got to make it now. And the problem is if you make the move now, that's still plenty of time for Larry Yingling to try to fight back and maybe get some retaliation. But Brian P. Johnson has not been known as the aggressor to use the bumper very often. Benjamin Nelson, we haven't seen him want to use the bumper as often either. It's been all respect given to these top three against one another. But when it comes down to crunch time, you got Benjamin Nelson who's already locked in. Brian needs a win to move on in the playoffs. Larry Yingling's got enough points that as long as he finishes inside of our top 20, he's good. Where do you want to even place contact? Because you know, if you bump the driver in front of you, that's not an absolute that you're only going to be moving that driver. You could also get caught up in a mess.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it happen to Douglas Newbigin earlier. He put bumper on the 24, and they both went around. So I don't know, Sam. Like this that's what makes this format so much fun. Is it really does test the ethics of every driver. I mean, obviously everyone wants to run each other clean out here, but when you're in that type of scenario, sometimes you might have to take a little bit more of a risk and do something you wouldn't normally do.
And the fastest driver of the four that you see on screen, it's the one in the back. Zach Hall has been the fastest driver of this core four drivers for the last 3 laps, and he's trying to advance forward if he can. Zach Hall, as well as Brian P. Johnson, both in a must-win scenario because of where Douglas Newbigin runs currently in 13th. There is pressure to make sure that you move forward and grab these positions, but you need to as well make sure that you don't get yourself caught up in trouble with lap traffic as they're closing in on James Hackworth Jr. Hackworth Jr., I'm not expecting him to be a real true factor, but sometimes just having a car in front of you can throw you off. As Hackworth just pulls it to the apron and lets the leaders drive on by.
And let's not forget, Sam, you know, even though Larry Yingling is seemingly locked in, I would almost say to this point, and we know Benjamin Nelson's locked in, these guys want to win too because they're trying to put as many playoff points in their bucket as possible to start that championship round, Sam. So anything they can do tonight may help them towards a step closer to a championship.
Less than 20 laps to go here tonight. We do have overtime if it's needed. If we have the caution with less than 5 laps to go and before the white flag comes out. But the field all in mind, recognizing, hey, we went clean and green all the way through our stage run, our first stage, which was our competition caution, our first 50 laps. Could we be able to survive a 60-lap run? As with these drivers are just 30 laps away from finding them, 3 laps away from having 50-lap old tires. And now the rubber is going to be maxed away. If you didn't protect or defend your rubber for this long run, you are in some trouble. And it looks like that of Benjamin Nelson. It's calling go time. His tires are set up for this final push. And the 79 trying to go back-to-back going for here this evening, which would be heartbreaking for Brian P. Johnson and Zach Hall.
And not to mention Larry Yingling, Sam, who's led this entire race to this point. I feel like that's the last person you want to see and looking in your mirror is the 79 car. You know he's fast, you know he wins a lot of races, and now he's right on your bumper.
I mean, he's been up front for most of this season. He just continues to be there. And for Larry Yingling, he's only gotten 1 win, but he's in the books of the driver that's led the most this season. And with the amount of laps that have been led, if Larry loses this race, he would take over the lead of the driver that's led the most laps this season, but he wouldn't have the most wins. It would go to the 79 to Benjamin Nelson, who's already gotten 4 this season, trying to go for his 5th. And the 79 putting the pressure on. This is that opportunity you're looking for if you're Brian P. Johnson and Zach Hall. You need to set up, get a little bit closer, hope for a bigger mistake to happen between these 2 drivers, and sneak away with these positions and try to take the win back as they're closing in on James Kaufman now. Going to be the next lap car. We'll see if Kaufman's going to get out of the way or if he's going to just stay and put as they are really using up one another on the entry of turn 3.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth, Sam. This is the opportunity here for Brian P. Johnson and Zach Hall running 3rd and 4th. They're looking out their windshield hoping that one of these drivers made some mistake. It's all it takes as they come up on the lap car here of James Coffin. Where's he going to go? It looks like he's going to pull to the bottom maybe and just let these, he's going to pull to the outside here. So non-factor, he's going to let these guys go around. But Larry Yingling is not letting Benjamin Nelson
Kaufman
go.
into the wall in front of Brian P. Johnson, and the caution is out. Brian P. Johnson and Zach Hall caught up in it as Kaufman gets spun around. Instead of getting out of the way, he stays in the wall, then pulls down in front of Brian P. Johnson. And we got the late caution. We're gonna have a shootout here in Richmond.
Oh, Sam, this is gonna set up just an absolute shootout. I mean, what do you do at this point? 10 laps to go. You know the tires are worn. Do you come in and get the tires? As we take a look at the replay, looks like the 25 tries to move out of the way, gets in that wall, and just almost like a lack of awareness, Sam, of just where the other drivers were.
He hit the wall, and instead of just keeping it in the wall, let the drivers go on by and then sort out your problems, he bounced into the wall, yanked the steering wheel, and right in front of our contender, Brian P. Johnson, who looked to be the favorite, really maybe steal away, but instead, they're going to have to come into pit road, use a fast repair, but do you even want to risk it? How many drivers are going to stay out? It looks like everyone's going to come into pit road. Tires are too important. But man, would it have been interesting to see everyone stay out and Benjamin Nelson maybe stay in.
Yeah, that would have been, I mean, and gosh, especially if you're maybe one of these must-win guys, Sam. But, I mean, I think it's ultimately the smartest decision with everyone coming to pit road. You would have been an absolute sitting duck. But could we see possibly 2 tires? Looks like Nick Crawford's going to come off pit road first.
Nick Crawford did not make a stop. He just drove right through. And the 74, this might have been maybe missed his box. I don't know what the decision is here. He looks to be trying to lead a lap, but if Nick Crawford is staying out, this is torture for himself. And no, he just missed his box. He has to pull back into pit road. Nick Crawford's chances of trying to steal his way into the next round might be done with that one mistake.
Yeah, that could be a season-ending mistake, Sam, with how costly that could be. I mean, he was running just outside the top 10, and he's going to fall all the way back to probably the 20th position somewhere, Sam. So, I mean, just massive point loss right there.
And with that, I've seen the 74, he'll drop all the way down to around 20th for this restart. And for Benjamin Nelson, I mean, what a change around for the 79. He might have found it for himself up front. He's going to have the lead, but does he restart on the outside? Now, in the initial start, Nelson got the pole, and he restarted on the inside. That allowed Larry Yingling to rip the top and make the pass on this 79 machine. I'm curious if he's learned on what he wants to change. I believe he has made that change, as he's already showing signs that he wants the outside row.
Yeah, we've seen Larry Yingling be extremely strong on these starts, Sam, but I mean, he has controlled pretty much every restart to this point, except for the very start of the race that you talked about. So, and we know he likes to run that upper line. So I think this is a good call by Benjamin Nelson taking the outside lane here.
Well, thank you again for joining with us, ladies and gentlemen, for the WSSR Roasted Gems Cup Series on Freaky Fast Broadcasting on your Wednesday night. This is the last race of the round of 10. After tonight's race, we will cut our 10 drivers down to 6, and those 6 drivers will have 2 races to figure out who can gain the most points to win the Season 7 championship. But it all comes down to tonight's run. Brian P. Johnson, Zach Hall, because of where Joshua Kanata runs currently, as well as Douglas Newbigging, both drivers are in a must-win scenario to find themselves up front. For that of Joshua Kanata, he sponsored this race. It's the I'm Racing on My anniversary. Big shout out to Jess for allowing Josh to be running here tonight. But for Josh, his ultimate goal, stay at least 1 to 2 positions ahead or more of Douglas Newbigging, and the 16 can find himself into the next round of the playoffs and run for a championship. Story simple for Zach Hall and Brian P. Johnson. Win, and you make it to the next round. You lose, you're no longer running for a championship. A little bit of wheel spin could be happening, though, as we're back to green flag action for the I'm Racing on My anniversary 160 at Richmond. Of Nelson already gone. Other drivers scattering. Zach Hall goes extremely wide for the 32, and he's losing ground as Johnson is up to 3rd.
Yep, Brian P. Johnson's up to 3rd place, Sam, but it's Benjamin Nelson that got the whole shot on the restart. He's going to be the leader with 5 laps to go, and Larry Yingling's behind him.
And Larry Yingling, dominator of this race. He's led almost every single lap here tonight until those last couple and the yellow flag came out. And Benjamin Nelson, he's been protecting his tires all night long. This is the first time he no longer has to protect. It's all about full bore takeoff. And the pole sitter of tonight's race is doing just that. 4 laps to go and still having a decent gap, about a car length ahead. Other drivers, though, spinning out behind. It's the 17 of Chris Stitz that spins out on the front stretch. We stay green with 4 laps to go. Gonna be 3 when they cross the line.
No caution out. We continue to stay green, but I think Larry Yingling's going to have one last shot potentially at Benjamin Nelson here, Sam, as they cross the line. 3 laps to go now as they head into turn 1.
3 laps to go, and for Douglas Newbigging, Joshua Kanata, they continue to race aggressively around one another, knowing that if Brian P. Johnson wins, there's a chance to change things up, but Carnage hits in the back. It's going to be Ollie Fonseca and Brad Delph. Contact. We're heading to overtime.
Going to be a green-white checkered finish here, Sam. And who this helps massively as well, Nick Crawford. He's managed to get his way up to 18th position now. Is it a little too late? And it looks like after, as they come by and cycle through, he's actually going to be up to 16th now. So is there still hope for Nick Crawford that he could potentially still point his way in?
It's highly improbable for Nick Crawford, because for Nick, coming in tonight, he needs to make sure that he's at least 6 positions ahead of either Joshua Kanata or he's 6 positions ahead of Douglas Newbigging. Those are the 2 drivers that the 74 needs to be ahead of. And he's not even close to really those drivers. It's tough to be where he's at, but with the timing this yellow, it does change things up for the back marker drivers on the way they're going to attack this run. As you see the replay of the 24 sliding in front of the 6 and spinning out, bringing out the yellows. Nick Crawford makes a dash to the inside. Cody Reed makes some hard contact. They're expected to come into pit road. They've got themselves, I believe, still an extra set of tires to work with. And if that's the case, hey, we could be seeing Cody Reed as well as Nick Crawford. They could be flying in the back half of the field. That's going to be a good 3 laps of green flag advantage on those tires, and we've seen how important it's been to have tires. We'll see if Nick Crawford can fly through the field.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't hurt at this point, Sam. If you're back there and you don't think you're going to point your way in, I mean, why not throw 4 fresh tires on it and try to get some type of advantage and differential. But, I got to go back to our front 4 here, Sam. I mean, Benjamin Nelson executed a great restart there. We saw some tire spin. What did these guys learn? I mean, can they anticipate, maybe the jump a little bit better? Can they think about launching a little smoother so they don't spin their tires and that they can be closer to that back bumper? Because at this point, I mean, we know how much Larry Yingling wants to win. He's absolutely dominated tonight. The 79, our last week's winner. And then row 2, Brian P. Johnson and Zach Hall, both in a must-win scenario right now, Sam. So is there any chance at all that they could, still have a shot at this thing?
I mean, they're going to need a perfect restart here, and that's going to be in the hands of Zach Hall on if he can get a good launch with Benjamin Nelson. Now, those 2 drivers are teammates. They're on that Snowy Desert Racing team. We'll see if they want to work together on this restart, or does Nelson just run this race on his own and say, you're fending for your own here, we're all kind of being selfish at this time. Do I even want my teammate to be my competition? Or do I just want to focus on this race and get another win, another bonus point that could be crucial enough to win a championship after tonight is done? We got 2 more races left in the season. That's Homestead, Chicagoland, the round of 6, the championship round. Can't wait for it, but we are in overtime. The rules are simple. If we make it to the white flag, this race becomes official. If we get a caution under this first lap, we head to attempt number 2. Attempt 1 is underway. Nelson gets the whole shot. He gets a fabulous launch as the iRacing on My Anniversary 160 is underway in overtime attempt number 1.
Benjamin Nelson, he's going to pull ahead 1-2 car lengths, but the battle for second, Brian P. Johnson's going to throw it to the inside of Larry Yingling down into turn 3.
Brian P. Johnson's going to need a caution if he wants to get back into the fight here, but off the exit of turn number 4, Nelson looks good. The rest of the field scattering around, but it's going to be your Roasted Gems Coffee white flag for Benjamin Nelson. Nelson, out of the exit of turn number 2, keeps himself pointing in the right direction, and he is going to be set to get himself into victory lane. A perfect entry to turn 3. No one's even close. Give the 6th out of the 79 his 5th win of the season, and a book a ticket again for the 79. He did it last week. Why not double down on some extra points before the championship round?
How about it for Benjamin Nelson, Sam? He sweeps the round of 10, and he, by far, is going to poise himself as the championship favorite as they enter into the final round, the final 6, to see who's going to claim the championship.
And looking at way people finished out tonight's race on where drivers finished compared to where they needed to be, I believe the 6 drivers that entered tonight as your 6 should be moving on unofficially. We'll wait for 100% confirmation. Once we get to the post-race show, we'll be told who are the 6 drivers moving on and the 4 that will not continue. One driver, though, he confirmed it twice. Benjamin W. Nelson wins here for the I'm Racing On My Anniversary 160 at Richmond. Congratulations to 79. We'll also be talking to Larry Yingling, Zach Hall, and a spotlight driver right after this. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the post-race show for the WSSR Roasted Gems Cup Series, Season 7, the round of 10. Tonight was the cutoff race at Richmond for I'm Racing On My Anniversary 160, and Josh Kanata was doing just that, and we have gotten confirmation. The 16 will be moving on. We'll talk to him as our spotlight driver, but first, we have our top 3 that we need to talk to as we move on to the 79 down in victory lane. We've talked to him 5 times this season in this position, and now it's time to see how he's feeling for the 5th, as we've got Ben with us. Ben, win again. This time it looked a little bit different from past races, not in a dominant fashion. It seemed like it was kind of a search and see how you wanted to run the race throughout the whole entire night, but ultimately you were the fastest car How are you feeling now going back-to-back before the championship round?
I am on cloud nine. I'm so happy I was able to do that. Uh, you just in this league, you just can't count on having a good run like a top three. That is incredibly tough to do that on a consistent basis with these guys. I I'm floored that I was able to do a back-to-back win, especially this late in the playoffs. That's awesome. More playoff points. But yeah, so going back to the race, I was kind of just testing how I should save my tires, and the runs played out in a way where I could do that. So I saved a little too much, honestly, the first run, and I didn't quite get back to Larry. But second run, it was a little better. Third was really what I needed to do. I was maybe gonna make the pass, and then the caution came out, but I was slightly ahead. So uh, I was just very, very happy with the amount of green flag racing we had too.
Yeah, Benjamin, congratulations, man, on your fifth win of the season. Doing it tonight, almost stealing it at the end there from Larry. I know Larry was out front for the majority of the night, but you talked about just your tire strategy and saving and pushing when you needed to. I mean, Ben, what kind of momentum does this set up for you? Heading into that championship round. I've talked to you earlier this year. I thought you made a statement performance. Back earlier this season, and you seem to just continue to grow with your momentum. So how are you feeling? Getting ready to go for this championship now.
I mean, I have as much confidence as I can have, but anything can happen literally any race, and it is a sport for a reason. You can't just rely on what you've already done. You've got to go out and perform, and it's a lot easier said than done. It is not easy to do what any of these guys do. The amount of focus that I had to have in this race, I was like scared that I was going to make a mistake because of how close everyone was. It was very intense. This car is tough to drive too, so props to literally everybody in this field. I'm so impressed that we were able to do that. Even my road to pro races were horrible at this track. This race was head and shoulders above that in fun, and I'm sure entertainment too. You don't want to watch a wreck fest, so this was good.
It certainly was a good one. And Ben, you've been just kind of shedding so much light on your competition, on how much they are going to be tough to beat. But talking about your competition, you're one of six drivers now running for a championship. You got Larry Yingling, Shane Tarian, that of Ryan Kelly, Douglas Newbigging, and Joshua Kanata. What are you feeling about your competition? Is there anyone that sticks out that you might be worrying about going into these next two races at Homestead and Chicagoland?
I mean, statistically, it's got to be Larry. He's so good. He doesn't really make mistakes, so uh, he's gonna be tough to beat. It's really all I can say. I've got to perform my best, and if I don't, I will get beat. So uh, you're just gonna have to watch and find out.
Well, Ben, again, congratulations on going back to back and getting your fifth win this season. Good luck in the championship round. And before we officially let you go, the floor is now yours for any shout outs.
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to my family watching in the other room, um, to Roasted Jim's Coffee, Trophy Smack, the admins that run such an incredible league. Steve Benjamin for doing an incredible job at race control. You guys for the American broadcast. That's not really what I meant to say. The amazing broadcast. American as well, I guess. But yeah, it's a lot of fun to be a part of this whole thing. I'm forever grateful. It's hard to find leagues this good.
Well, that will be the 79 machine of Benjamin Nelson, grabbing his fifth win this season and the favorite going into the championship. Congratulations on your win tonight, and good luck aiming for the championship.
Thanks so much.
As we go from victory lane, we head to second place, and we heard from Ben saying, hey, Larry might be the toughest competition to watch out for if you look at the statistics. Well, the three-time champ has an opportunity to go for number 4. We have Larry Yingling with us. Larry, you dominated tonight. You led the most laps. You were up front majority of this evening, but it just wasn't there at the end. How are you feeling after tonight's performance with the way that this race kind of ebbed and flowed at the end there?
Oh, I feel great. I ran a practice last night, and with my times and plus the pre-race practice, I was thinking I was going to qualify maybe 10th at best. So I was just hoping for top 10, get out of this race and advance. But then I pulled off another second place in qualifying, and I took the lead again. Then tried to hold off Zach, and then Ben came, and Brian, and whoever else. I was just holding off for dear life on long runs. Then I was really hoping that last run I saved enough tires on the straightaways, letting off, trying to save my right rear, but that didn't help. And even if that caution came out at the end, I think second was the best I could do at the end.
Well, Larry, congratulations, man, on a phenomenal race. I mean, you stole the lead right from the beginning. Had a great start of the race, and just seemingly dominated all night. Was there anything else you feel like you could have done differently to prevent Ben from passing you there? I mean, you talked about the tire fall off there. Was that just what it was? Did you just burn a little too much up at that last stint?
Yeah, I feel like I'll have to ask him. Our tire wear might have been the same, but I might have just had too much heat in my right front. And at that time, I couldn't really do anything different. But I know starting to run, I saw, I think, him and maybe Zach and maybe someone else. I figured they were maybe saving their stuff and waiting for that long run to come in. And I was just barely trying to save. I was just hoping for maybe a caution at the end that came out, but it came out when I was in second.
Well, Larry, with the championship round, we're going to mile-and-a-half races, Homestead, Chicagoland. We look at the stats this season. That's been where your best finishes have been so far, has been the mile-and-a-halves. What is that confidence level heading into these last two races of the season?
It's fairly high. I do love those tracks. I do really like this car, especially on mountain-halves. So I think the past few weeks, including the short track tonight, I've learned some stuff not to give it away. Give the win away, hopefully. Try not to next round. They had just 2-lap sprints pretty much, or 2-race sprint round, and all even on points, and best man win.
Well, we cannot wait to see how the Gladiators are going to conquer these next two races. Larry, before we officially let you go, the floor is now yours.
I definitely shout out my teammates this race, Ryan Kelly and James Heater, plus Kevin Hash Brown for helping out on the box, along with Deontric, James, and Carolyn. And for my sponsors, Muffin Sports Cards and Port City Cards. Check them out on Instagram if you are interested in hobby of collecting cards. And if you are interested in weight training or nutrition, check out Daniel Payne 1 on Instagram, virtual or in person near the Shreveport, Louisiana area. And Cody Glencock's music on Spotify, YouTube, and TikTok. And as always, shout out to you guys for the broadcast. It'll be a interesting one to watch again tonight.
Oh, it was certainly a good one for us to watch from above. Congratulations on a top 3 finish, Larry, and good luck going for championship number 4.
Thank you, sir.
Well, from second place, we go down to third. It's been joy to hear from all the drivers, but we go down to the first that's knocked out of the playoffs and will not be running for a championship. We go to third place with Zach Hall. Zach, we were watching the situation unfold there late. In those final 30 laps, it was a lot of bouncing back and forth on drivers that were struggling, that just needed a good run, that started to perform there late. How are you feeling after tonight's performance? And talk about how your season's been for yourself.
Well, tonight went good. It could have went a little better. I mean, we could have been. I think we had race winning pace. Just could never get the pass for the lead. It was so hard to pass. And if you stayed on someone's inside, you just burned the tires up. So it was very difficult. It was a lot of patience trying to not wreck Larry when I was all over him, of course, for that first run before the competition caution. But man, overall, I cannot complain because like the race tonight, if it would have been a caution field race and we'd been pacing around, I mean, I would have been maybe a little upset how it played out, but we raced it out. I mean, it was about as good as racing as I've had at Richmond in a long time. It was tough to pass, but still the racing between the top guys, at least for me up front, was spectacular. We all put it on the line. It was all hard racing, and I think it was close tonight, but sometimes you come up a little bit short, they say.
Well, Zach, you alluded to it perfectly. You talked about the great racing, and man, did you put on the show for us? You and Brian P. Johnson both, and seemingly a must-win position there, battling each other. You talked about trying to get that lead from Larry early in the race. I think it's safe to say we normally see you kind of be a little more conservative and save tire, but you had a clear mission tonight, obviously, to go win. Do you feel like your race could have played differently if you were able to get by him early?
Yeah, I do. I personally feel like I could have controlled it. I was talking to Larry about it, and he said he even felt I was just a tad bit quicker. And it's so tough in these cars. Like I wanted to move them out the way. I wanted to just get them out the groove and get up out my way. But if you do that in these cars, you're just gonna wreck them. So it's one of those deals where like it's my good friend. It's not worth it to wreck him. I'm gonna try to pass him the clean way, and she couldn't get it done. But I changed my mentality after that. That was I think the good change for me is I was like, all right, passing is just going to be super tough. And I saw what my teammate Ben did, where he started on pole, dropped all the way back, and then kind of drove through. And I noticed if you could kind of save the tire a little bit, you could actually make passes on the bottom. And that's what I employed. It's just unfortunately we didn't get long enough runs. It seems like every time I got to third or second right there on behind the leaders, the caution would fly. And I felt like that was when I was really starting to shine a little bit. But at the end of the night, third place finish. We'll try to go win these last two races. I mean, I'm still not, I'm not racing for a championship, but I still want to go win every single race I go in. So we'll definitely have that mindset still.
I mean, that kind of answers what question I was going to roll into there, Zach, of the mentality for these next two races. I know you've got Ben on your team running for that championship. How much assistance are you aiming for to try to help your teammate get into a championship and get his first for the WSSR?
It's a tough position to be in because when you got a teammate like that running for a championship, Ben is so good that I don't think I'll have an effect on him because usually he's so quick. But I'm not going to take any risks with him. I won't. I'm going to race him still because I would want Ben to race me. Like tonight, people could have said he probably could have rolled over from me maybe a few times, but I don't want that. I want to race it out and earn it the hard way, and I imagine he does too. So I'm not going to give anything to him, but I won't, jeopardize anything. So I'll definitely weigh that in the risk meter for sure heading into these next two races. But nonetheless, I just want to go out and get 2 wins because, momentum is everything. And if we can get 2 wins, you never know. Season 8, maybe we'll be right back in the mix again.
Oh, we cannot wait to see how these next two races go for yourself, Zach. But before we officially let you go, the floor is now yours for any shout-outs.
First off, I just want to shout out the 6 guys that made it. I mean, a really cool group of 6 that are going to go on and fight for the championship. And, Larry's the only past champion. So we got 5 guys that have a chance to be the first-time champion here. That's amazing news to my ears because that's what we kind of planned when we came into the season is let's bring some new guys in, man. Let's shake this thing up. Get guys like me, Brian, Cedric, who have been in the Final Four almost season in, season out of this thing and make it tough, make it a competitive league. And I think we've really achieved that goal this season, and we can only continue to maybe strive to make it even better. So shout out to those 6 guys. First off, great job by them. Great 2 races. Shout out to you guys in the booth for everything y'all do. I hope y'all enjoyed tonight's race. I know it was hard to pass, but definitely probably got some good storylines in there with how it all shook out. Thank you to our sponsors, Roasted Jim's Coffee, who's been the title sponsor here for multiple seasons now. Thank you to everything they do. Use code WSSR at checkout. Go to TrophySmack.com because they're going to be providing a trophy here in about 2 weeks to our champion. So thank you to TrophySmack.com for everything they do for us also. And then last but not least, shout out to all my teammates out there, Snowy Desert Racing. It looks like we're going to win the team championship hopefully here with the way it looks. So that's going to be the goal also. Just make sure we can lock that up.
Certainly a good goal to go for it. Well, Zach, congratulations on a good finish and good luck in these final 2 races.
Thank you, guys.
Well, from 3rd place, we go to 6th in points, just sneaking in, and it was a solid run for himself. We got the 16 machine, as well as he sponsored the race with the Racing on my anniversary 160, as we bring in Joshua Kanata with us. Josh, we were looking at the points all night long, trying to see and calculate, were you going to be in, were you going to be out? and it looked like for majority of the night you were just sneaking in and making it to the next round and run for a championship. How are you feeling after tonight's performance that is officially locked you in to run for a championship?
Happy, relieved, shocked, a lot of things. I was keeping track of it all night too, and it was really just more down to me, Crawford, and Douglas, and those guys don't mess around, and I was getting nervous when Douglas got by me on that green white checkered, but we pulled it off, and now we can look forward to Homestead in Chicago, and whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen.
Well, Josh, first and foremost, I want to wish you a happy anniversary for you and your wife. Really, really cool sponsor promo that you guys ran tonight. So, congratulations on that, and congratulations on making the championship sets. I mean, just kind of walk us through your night. Seemed like you kind of ran around that top 10 all night. Right around the 10th to 12th place position. I know your goal seemingly was just to finish ahead of Nick Crawford, and it seems like you did that. You stayed in front of him all night, but just talk us through your race.
Well, thank you first of all. I mean, happy anniversary to my lovely girlfriend sitting behind me. But yeah, I was just trying to really just avoid getting run over and try not to tear up the tires too bad. And I was, like I said, just really watching where Nick and Douglas were, because those are the two main guys I was facing. I mean, Ryan Kelly was within striking distance, but he had a lot of speed tonight. So it was more just trying to stay out of trouble and don't fight any unnecessary battles. Don't do anything stupid, really. I knew what I needed, and I got just enough, I guess. So I'm just glad it worked out. And yeah, I don't know. It's a wild one.
It certainly is. I mean, Josh, looking at the competition coming into this season and the way the first 4 races were showing of just the caliber of drivers that then made it into the playoffs, how does this make you feel knowing that you made it? You're part of the 6 drivers that have survived the playoffs and have made it to this point where you even have a chance for a championship.
Yeah, these guys are no joke. It it definitely feels that. I mean, I don't know if it's like I don't belong or whatever, but I got there in the end, and I'm very thankful for that. But these next 2 races are going to be quite difficult, to say the least. I mean, these are some of the fastest guys that I've ever raced with, and they're always so close together every week, and they're always, putting up the fastest times at practice, or always qualifying up front, and they're racing, nose to tail for 100 laps straight. And going into the next few weeks, I mean, I guess, staying out of trouble isn't exactly going to be the goal anymore. It's going to be hopefully being able to keep up with those guys and, capitalize on any I don't know, incidents that do happen, or just putting myself in position to even sneak a win if I can, or I'm not really sure. It's gonna be difficult, but I'm ready for the challenge.
We're excited to see how you're going to perform, Josh, in these final 2 races of the season. Congratulations again, and now the floor is yours for any shout-outs.
Well, first and foremost, happy anniversary, as I said, to my wonderful girlfriend sitting behind me. That was a stipulation for running tonight, was sponsoring it, so thank you. Thank you to you guys for putting on such a great show, and to the guys who run the league. It's a ton of fun. I love doing this every Wednesday night, and thank you for everybody watching, and hopefully we can see you guys next week, and maybe one more after that.
Open for it. That's going to be the 6-team machine of Joshua Kanata, the last driver to make it into our championship 6, and he will be fighting for a championship. When we were hearing from Zach, he threw out, hey, the only previous champion is Larry Yangling that's going to make it of the 6 drivers running for a championship. Well, on top of that, he is the only past driver to be making it to this point. The other 5 that are joining Larry, all rookies of the series that all joined this season. Just showing the rookie class was incredible. As you have yourself with Benjamin Nelson, most winningest driver this season. He's going to be a threat to watch out for. Larry Yingling as well, who's the 3-time champion. But watch out for Shane Terrian, our regular season champion, with Ryan Kelly, Douglas Newbigging, and Joshua Kanata. Kanata, probably the Cinderella story to make it to this point. There was a lot of drivers that kept on saying, hey, maybe you might not even make it out of the round of 16. And he's made it now to the round of 6. Certainly a great story, Josh, to watch out on how the other Josh is going to run.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a huge achievement to make, the final. I mean, that's what every driver's goal is when they set out at the beginning of the season. They want to be there and have a chance to compete for the championship, and Kanata's done that. He's done a great job. He's survived all the cut races, and you know, he drove great. He drove a great race tonight. He did what he had to do. He put himself in great position with a really strong run last week to where all he needed to do was have a consistent night to night, and he did that.
He got it done. As we take a look at our unofficial results of tonight's race, Benjamin Nelson just continues on his spree, goes back to back for the round of 10, and with the most momentum, the most points, he'll be in a great spot heading into next week at Homestead. Larry Yingling dominated with the most laps led, but he'll come away in second. Zach Hall, must-win scenario, gets third, no longer in the playoffs. Same for Season 1 champion Brian P. Johnson. Isaiah Sutherland is going to come away with fifth. Sixth goes to Christopher Norris. Ryan Kelly seventh. Shane Terry in eighth. Ninth goes to Douglas Newbigging. And Joshua Kanata finishing out our top 10.
And looking just outside the top 10, highlighting a couple of guys. Brandon Colley, strong night, finishes 11th, maybe a little bit further back than what he maybe felt like he deserved tonight. He ran solidly inside the top 10, but nevertheless, a strong run for Colley. Ken Campbell is going to finish 12th, Brian Noel 13th, Nick Crawford 14th. Sam, just unfortunately, we saw him miss his bots there that last stop and had to go all the way back to the back of the pack. And Nick Crawford, unfortunately, is going to be one of those drivers cut and will not move on. A little further down, we see Cody Reed had a strong run. Our Talladega winner ends up 16th tonight, and then a little further back, we saw Chris Stitz have some issues up in the wall tonight, finishes 18th. And then, just the rest of the drivers. Holly Fonseca, 19th, had an incident with Douglas Newbigging. And then James Coffin running out the top 20, who got involved with those leaders that brought out that one of those last cautions, Sam. So tough night for James Coffin.
Yeah, I'm curious on how, if that incident didn't happen, would Ben still have won, or could Zach or Brian fought back? A lot of what ifs, but we now are down to our absolutes. That's Benjamin Nelson, Larry Yingling, Shane Terrian, Ryan Kelly, Douglas Newbigging, and Joshua Kanata will be finding themselves running for the championship and to grab an actual trophy this year from Trophy Smack. Well, before we officially call it a night, we also want to give shout outs again, our final ones, for our two major sponsors for the WSSR, being Roasted Gems Coffee. Roasted Gems Coffee, they also have a wide range of merch line that you can check out. They got clothing as well as mugs that you can purchase on top of getting their quality coffee. Again, use the promo code WSSR for 5% off at roastedgemscoffee.com. And also to Trophy Smack, the drivers have been knowing about it, and now it's the hunt. 6 drivers aiming for the custom trophy from TrophySmack.com, and the WSSR world is excited for it. Remember, when purchasing from TrophySmack.com, use the promo code WSSRSmack for 10% off at purchase. Josh, what an incredible season. We're down to the final 6, and with just 2 more races to go.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Sam, we were just talking with our producer Robert Moyer Jr. and what a great season, and I can't believe how fast the season has flown by. It's been an absolute pleasure to join you in the booth. I've greatly enjoyed calling these races with you, and just to watch the talented of drivers out there. I mean, you heard Zach Hall talk about, we wanted to bring some new guys in here and really build this league up, and I think they've done just that, Sam. I mean, I think all 6 of these final contenders are very deserving to be here, and it's going to be a heck of a show watching these last 2 races.
It certainly has been a great season to seeing the drivers grow. It's also been great to watch you, Josh, grow as a commentator throughout this season. And for everyone that's watching, thank you so much for joining with us on your Wednesday night. We still have one more race this week, and it's going to be a good one. Tomorrow night, Stars and Stripes take the Gen 4 cars to Talladega. Super Speedway Racing's been a good one, and could we see someone steal the win like we saw with WSSR just a few weeks ago with Cody Reed doing it back at the start of the playoffs? Don't want to miss that. As well as we take the weekend off, we'll be back on Monday. Who makes the Final 4 for that of the ISRC Truck Series? You're not going to want to miss that race either. They got plenty of great action on Monday. Tuesday, preparing for who makes the playoffs is the Full Send Racing Series in the Xfinity car. And then we're right back here next week, the start of the championship round. Whew, this is the best part of the year when we're watching races and the season's coming to an end, because it's all clutch time. Who could clutch up? Who's going to get the championship? Cannot wait for it. But for tonight, thank you for joining with us. For myself, Sam Dyer, for Joshua Altus, as well as for Robert Moyer Jr., thank you so much for joining with us here at Freaky Fast Broadcasting. We will have our next broadcast tomorrow night, Stars and Stripes. Don't want to miss it, as that will be our next Freaky Fast broadcast.